I'm Cully Perlman for NovelMasterclass.com. Thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about something that often gets overlooked, the structure of your novel. And in particular, we're going to talk about Freytag's pyramid. So, let's get started. What is Freytag's pyramid? When we talk about the structure of novels, there are none, in my opinion, more important than Freytag's pyramid. Freytag's pyramid was created by 19th century German playwright Gustav Freytag and is a model of dramatic structure. There are other structures out there, but the main ones besides Freytag's pyramid are Dan Harmon's story cycle, the 3-act structure, the Save the Cat beat sheet, In Medias Res, which is Latin for in the midst of things, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, and the 7-point story structure. John Gardner's Fichtean curve ends that 7 different story structures that we can have. Today, we're going to focus on Freytag's pyramid. Over the next few videos, we'll dive deeper into all of the different structures, but today we're focused on Freytag's pyramid. So let's get started. Freytag's pyramid contains 7 elements. The first of those elements is exposition. Exposition is the introduction to the characters, the setting, the background information, the tone of your novel, and so on. Then we come to the inciting incident. This is the first instance of conflict that gets our hero moving. It's the change in her life that begins our story and takes us to the rising action. Now, the rising action is the third step in the pyramid, and it's when the stakes rise. Hurdles are thrown at our hero that our hero must overcome. New characters may arise, but the plot is building up, one plot point at a time. Remember, plot is about causality. This happened, and so this happened as a result. Next is the climax. The climax is the moment of greatest tension in our plot between our hero and their opposition. It's the turning point between the falling action, and it's when our conflict is resolved. Once that happens, we're into the falling action. This is when our hero's conflict with the opposition is wrapping up and slowly leading to the resolution. Now, the resolution in Freytag's pyramid is when the conflict ends and when we come to know whether our hero achieves what they set out to achieve or if they haven't. Either way, our hero should be changed in some form or fashion. And then finally comes the denouement. This is the tying up of the loose ends, which our novel needs if it's to satisfy the promises we made at the beginning of the novel. Now that you know the different steps, let's dive a little deeper into each one of them. Let's begin with exposition. Exposition is where you introduce the reader to the world they're stepping into. It's where you introduce your hero, the setting in which your story takes place, what they want, meaning their goal, and ideally, what's stopping them from reaching that goal. An example of exposition is a first chapter that accomplishes much is John Kennedy Toole's A Confederacy of Dunces. Here are a few sentences from his novel. A green hunting cap squeezed the top of the fleshy balloon of her head. The green ear flaps, full of large ears and uncut hair, and the fine bristles that grew in the ears themselves, stuck out on either side like turn signals indicating directions at once. Full, pursed lips protruded beneath the bushy black mustache and, at their corners, sank into little folds with disapproval and potato chip crumbs. In the shadow, under the green visor of the cap, Ignatius J. Riley's supercilious blue and yellow eyes looked down upon the other people waiting under the clock at the D.H. Holmes department store, studying the crowd of people for signs of bad taste in dress. In these lines, we get to know the protagonist, Ignatius J. Riley, as well as what he looks like and the type of character he might be, his thoughts about money, class, and the setting. We want to keep reading because of how interesting and distinct of a hero Ignatius is, as well as what he thinks and why he does the things he does. The inciting incident comes next in our Freytag's pyramid. The inciting incident is what sets the journey or story in motion. It's the catalyst for what's to come for our hero, and it will ideally lead to a change in the character and become part of her arc. It's a beat in the narrative that upsets our hero's status quo, but one that promises the potential for the hero to achieve her goal or for her to get what she wants. It's your job as the author to show what the inciting incident is, and then to show the hero's struggle to either resist the call to action or accept it. Hint, they need to accept it for us to have a story. There will be struggles our hero will face. There will be consequences to the hurdles they overcome. The stakes will get higher, and the hero's want or goal will be either external or internal. After that is the rising action. Rising action refers to the events leading up to the conflict or to the climax. Rising action are the major events that add suspense to your novel. It's when the hurdles and complications arise, where the hero or protagonist begins to understand the situation they're in, and where readers begin to settle in with the main characters in the story, both good and bad, allies and enemies. Rising action asks questions that need to be answered, whatever they may be. It is where we have our plot points. Plot points are the major events that affect the main plot. In Freytag's pyramid, rising action follows the exposition and the inciting incident. Now, the climax is the highest point of Freytag's pyramid and where the reader experiences the most intense moment in your novel. In Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, for instance, it's when Romeo and Juliet commit suicide. In E.B. White's Charlotte's Web, the climax is when Wilbur, the pig, wins at the county fair and is thus saved from being butchered. The climax in your novel should be the turning point of your hero's character, whether good or bad, and it should be memorable to the reader. After the climax comes the falling action. The falling action is the downslope on Freytag's pyramid, and it comes directly after the climax. It is the unraveling of the conflict between your hero and whoever or whatever they're up against, and it leads to the resolution of your novel. Falling action allows your readers to take a breath, to have their need for any loose ends to be tied up, especially if you have any subplots in your novel. And it leads to the final two steps in our pyramid, the resolution and the denouement. The resolution and denouement of your novel are when the loose ends of your main plot are untied or resolved. Denouement is the French word for to untie the knot. Your resolution should resolve whatever conflict is left between your hero and her opposition, as well as inform the reader whether or not she achieved her goal. Did she win the medal, fulfill the goal she set out for herself on her journey, or did she fail but learn a valuable lesson in the process? In Freytag's pyramid, the denouement of our novel is the final tying up of any loose ends. If there are any outstanding questions, answers are provided, and the reader knows the outcome. Whether or not the outcome is a positive one or a negative one is secondary to the author's wrapping it all up. Following Freytag's pyramid is a great way to understand the structure of your novel because it's like a blueprint to ensuring your writing is meeting the expectations of your readers. It also gives you, the writer, an overarching outline that you can follow, even if not exactly. Remember, there are other structures out there, and we'll get to those soon. For now, go out there with this new structure and play around with it a little. Compare novels you read to see how Freytag's pyramid applies to them, but also if you've already written a novel, how it applies or doesn't to your novel. You never know what you'll find until you get in there and give it a go. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe down below and share with your fellow writers. It'll help me hone in on what's working for you, and I'll create more videos on craft that will help you along your journey. For NovelMasterClass.com, I'm Cully Perlman. Happy writing.